A very good morning again, and thanks to those who are just joining us for the first time this morning. We had a really great start yesterday. And actually, I have been informed that up to 80 people were watching the event through the Periscope. So this is really, really great news. And now it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Youba Sokona, a personal friend and a mentor, as the second keynote speaker this morning. Youba is going to be speaking on the alignment between sustainable development, climate change, and I think also energy. Youba is a special advisor at the South Center, which is an intergovernmental organization dedicated to policy and intellectual analysis, tailored to meet the need of developing countries to instigate both collective and individual action, especially at the international arena. Last year, we were very elated when Youba was elected as the vice chair of the 6th IPCC cycle, after serving meritoriously as a co-chair of the Working Group 3, which I was serving as the lead author. I think that I can't speak without any form of contradiction that Youba is without a doubt one of the leading, if not the most authoritative voices in the energy, climate change, and development nexus in Africa. Youba has unparalleled and unrivaled access to African heads of state, where he provides very deep and insightful policy advice. And sometimes that makes me think that maybe I should blame him for anything that's going wrong. But Youba, I don't think it is possible to identify any meaningful, long, sustainable, innovative program in Africa in this space that has not received enormous input from Youba in the last 25 years. Before joining the South Center as a special advisor on climate and sustainable development, Youba was actually the coordinator of the foremost think tank, African Climate and Policy Center in Addis Ababa, which was a joint initiative of the African Development Bank, the United Nations Commissioner of Africa, and the AU. And I think that I first met Youba in 2006, when he was already in COP12 in Nairobi, giving a keynote plenary speech on sustainable development and climate nexus in Nairobi. So that gives you a sense of how long he's been working on this space. Youba is also a leader of leaders, and I don't think there are many of us from African descent who would not say that they've benefited immensely from the mentorship and direction and guidance from Youba. His thoughts are very comprehensive, he's deep, he's insightful, and sometimes very uncomfortably radical. Ladies and gentlemen, Youba Sokona for the keynote.
Thank you, Chuks. Now you put me on trouble because the expectations are like at that level. But I thought that I will be a bit having modest input on a complicated and complex issue. And then climate is a complex and complicated issue. And then if you bring in the justice element, it becomes much more complex and complicated. And then things adding on and on and on, it's very difficult and not easy to find a way. And I hear that last night with chatting with a number of people, you exhausted all the issues. Maybe I think that we are not in the right track on solving the climate issues. Maybe we need to explore other avenues that will help us, and then to really focus on the issue, because climate is not isolated to a number of other issues. Focusing on climate will not be there. And this is why I am offering that aligning climate and sustainable development, because in the end, we all aspire and then to lead to sustainable development. And then climate is part of it. And then solving the climate issues, solving the sustainable development issue will help us to deal also at the same time with the climate. But we do have in our mindset, if you are in a negotiation, you feel that the only thing that exists in this planet is climate. The minute you get out of the COP, you realize that the life is completely different. Maybe we'll have to look at how life looks like, and then we will bring all the elements, even some of the unforeseen elements on the discussion, we can handle that. And I think that we had a tremendous opportunity in 2015, and then we did not realize it. Because there were 4 major events, you cannot disconnect those 4 major events. We had the science, the latest scientific understanding of the different issues that came out in 2015. And then many people think that, and this is critical fundamental, it doesn't matter where you are, without money we cannot solve the problem. And then we had the possibility to discuss money. That was in Addis. And we had the Sustainable Development Goals. That was in New York. And this is the major framing, and then that's whether you are poor or rich, you are wealthy or you are developed or you are an LDC, you are interested on SDGs. It doesn't matter. This is your personal view or your personal perspective. You don't need any agreement to take that route. And then we had the Paris conference. Many said that, oh, this is a major success they had after 25 years. And I don't know a single country, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think that even in the UK, those participating in those discussions had any talk among themselves. This did not happen in my country. Because I was with my head of the state 2 days ago. No clue idea. And then you cannot deal with any of those issues, climate issues, without connecting those different things. I think this is a missed opportunity. And then we think that at the Bourget you'll solve the problem of the climate. Why climate problems related to those different issues, among others. But all those happen incidentally in 2015. And let me start with the science one, and then the messages are clear, and then but Paris was completely bland on the message of what happened with the science, saying our impact, our role on the climate issues is not something that is natural, is we made it. That was clear. And it's the warning also that the problem is getting worse and worse. And then it's also indicate that we can solve it. It is not desperate. The only way to solve it is act as soon as possible. And then if we address development and climate change together, the process can be mutually reinforcing. But we give the impression to the poor countries, those who have limited capacity, that we can disconnect the two. And this is the message they got, because the negotiators have no discussion with all the different sectors. And that is some of the important element I think that we need to get in mind systematically. And that is crucial. And there is no doubt that the problem is getting worse. And then we celebrate a success where things are getting worse and worse. We said that we are in a good trend, but the science did not tell us that we are in a good move. It tells us we are in a bad, because the rate of the growth of emission is increasing. And then from that level, and mainly, basically, related to that, we can elaborate on that. And then this is not something that came to the nature, it is a human who made it. And then we can look at, we are not in a good trend. And then it's also important to notice, and that is also the science said it clearly, that more than half of the cumulative emission between 1750 and 2010 have occurred in the last 40 years. And that will be also increasing, because my country, in Nigeria, they aspire development, and then they need to energy, and then to power the development. For time being, it will come from the fossil fuels. and then the rate will be much more higher. And that's important, and then we need to notice that. And in those countries, there is a lot of unfulfilled development aspirations. This is natural. People have aspiration to end extreme poverty in all its forms. How you can do that without development, I don't know. I have no experience that maybe the history can tell us you can do that without development. This is a legitimate aspiration. Industrialization is a legitimate aspiration. People want to move away from shipping out of the country raw materials and then to have added value, not nationally. This is a legitimate aspiration that needs to be fulfilled. And then the rapid sustainable economic growth is a legitimate aspiration, and that is needed. And then achieve higher per capita income is a legitimate aspiration. No one can deny you cannot do that. You cannot define any reason. I think that this is why you bring in the element of climate justice, and then how to make sure that those aspirations will not be jeopardized. And then full employment, being a poor country or rich country, is a legitimate aspiration. Anyone cannot wake up in a day and say that I cannot get a job. This is important. And then a greater distributional equity is crucial. Environmental sustainability, and then these issues and many others require urgent attention. It's not only the climate. So this is a wider, because there is a very few people, less than maybe 40,000 people in a bourgeois discussing something completely out of context. And then those are legitimate aspirations, and then those need to be fulfilled. And then this is why I think, at least from my perspective, that is why you bring the element of justice in it, not focusing only on number of elements. And then we also, science tells us that the window for action is rapidly closing. You can deal with the problem. It's like flooding. It's water coming. Slowly, slowly, you can solve it. But it's massively coming. You have no way you can stop it. Say, hey, wait a minute. We are closing the opportunity. And then this is important. And then it's also in that context that development aspiration must be fulfilled. It's also in that context those legitimate aspirations must be fulfilled. And then we need to get around of that. This is not a matter of signing a piece of paper. This is not a matter also of clapping, saying that we get a success story. This is reality. And then how to solve that reality. This is important. And we also know that the stabilization of the atmospheric concentration requires moving away from the baseline situation, the business as usual. And that is clear. And then it will require a lot of, it will require that we question the way we are doing business. It will be challenging institutionally, economically, technological challenge. We need to face those to move away. And some of the elements that has been assessed in the IPCC report are compatible with the 2 degrees element, but that need, from 2010, massive action. It cannot wait to have a piece of agreement saying that, oh, we are in the right direction. The right direction means taking action immediately. And then with all the critical and important elements, because in order to, maybe toward the end of the century, to have zero emissions, how we can imagine to have zero emission, to get the kind of standard of living without emitting. And then to a certain extent, we need to go to negative emissions. How we can do that? On the paper, we can do it. On the paper, you can do anything imaginable, you can do it. But those are some fundamental elements, and I think that we need. And then we also have, without additional mitigation, and then this is not, without taking concrete action, And then the science tells us the problem we are facing. And this is critical. And then those are, if you look at from the IPCC third assessment report, the fourth assessment report, and the fifth assessment report, the same diagram exists. And then things are getting worse. And I don't think the policymakers are really aware of how worse and how deep the situation is. And it's very important, and then reducing the emission can substantially reduce the risk due to expected impact of climate change. Because this is a collective problem. It's not a problem of south of north. It's globally, we have to understand it. We cannot, because this is the way that mitigation and adaptation are fundamentally related. You cannot separate them. You cannot say that, oh, you have to do mitigation, I have to do adaptation. Because if you have to mitigation, you cannot adapt. And that's critical, that issue. And then I don't think that if they really get the key message that came from those different elements. And so I think that the new direction is needed. We cannot, since '92, every year to have a discussion to see that what we can do. We need to explore new direction. It's possible. It exists. It's doable. And that's why I'm offering that for urgent action that address development challenges, because the issue is related to the development challenges. It is not to solve climate by itself. And then the 17 SDGs and their 169 targets present the unique opportunities. Some said that there are too many. That is fantastic, because no one is left out. Those different SDGs, and then the 669 targets, they present because they refer to global development priorities. They did not say that, oh, we focus only on the LDCs, or we focus only on the emerging economy or the industrial country. It's global. They are comprehensive. And then they encompass the three dimensions of the sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental. Add on that the governance element, and even the cultural and all the different things. You can expand it. And they are universal. It is not only one country who has to do it, a group of countries. Being a US or being Mali, all of them have to do it for their own perspective. And they include climate change. Climate is a condition to achieve it, but achieving the climate will not achieve the SDGs. It's important. And then they're providing aspirational narrative on the desired future for human. And also the synergy and trade-off between goals. Unfortunately, I participated in a number of discussions on the SDGs. All are about indicators, not what kind of aspirational narrative is needed. Is possible, is for a particular set number of countries and other. Those are important. And the climate and the sustainable development are cross-cutting and complex, or much more complicated. And then you explore that, you discuss that, and then you know better than me that it's complex because a response to climate can positively or negatively affect those objectives. Both mitigation and adaptation are equally important, and climate change is a stressor, and all those different elements at any university, they are very well documented. There's no need to spend any time on trying to convince people on that. This is very well known, very well articulated. It is not because we don't know. We have a clear understanding of that. And the major implication also of the SDGs for climate response strategy are becoming clearer, because we have better understanding, better exploration of policies to particular element of sustainable development, such as some are working on the issues of biofuel programs, and then they know, because you cannot solve climate problem actually without negative emission. Part of that's related to the biofuel issues, and then we have more more and more information on the issue of the biofuel program. The energy efficiency and then the climate and energy policy has major socioeconomic implications. And sustainable development implies also multiplicity of goals and variety of intervention. And then we do have a lot of those different elements are more and more documented. We have more elements, we have more insight, we have more perspective on that. And I think that globally, the work can be divided in 3 main categories of countries, because that to avoid any kind of arbitrary, we all have and accept there is a number of countries called LDCs, least developed countries. And in the X-door are in the left hand. And then in the right hand, industrialized country. And then in between, we have a wide range of countries. And those are globally, we can do that. And then in those different countries, if you look at this sort of a little corridor, the countries all have to adapt. And then all the countries also have to mitigate, because the emphasis based on where you are on one or the other is different, but they all have to do it. And then they have also different perspective, and then how those countries can bring the SDGs. Because if you are an LDC, your primary focus is no poverty. This is your fundamental element. How, in that context, you can align climate and those different issues. That is why they focus on adaptation. This element is not because of mitigation is that important. And then if they look at zero hunger is not only for the LDCs, it's also for those who are in that category. And then looking at good health and well-being, and then this go across from the LDCs to the industrialized country. All of them are interested on those different issues. This is not only a matter of poor countries. And then the quality of education, this is from the LDCs toward those different countries. The quality of education. And gender equality, that go also across. This is not a matter, because I get sometimes nervous when they said that, oh, gender issues associated with poverty. Because all the time, you look at the energy policy, they said that, oh, gender energy policy. I said, look, wait a minute. Have you solved your energy problem by looking at gender and energy in the industrialized country? Show me some cases. It's important also that they reduce inequality, and that go across the different set. This is not only a problem of the poor country, it's the whole humanity problem. We need to look at those. You cannot say that there is no inequality in the US, or there is no inequality in UK, or there is no inequality in China. This goes across. Sustainable city and communities, that goes across also of the different categories. Decent work and economic growth goes across industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And then this is much more in the right-hand side. And then responsible consumption and production. And this is much more the wealthy countries, the West, productive and consumption element. We need to address fundamentally those different issues. Clean water and sanitation, and affordable and clean energy, life below water, life on land, and all those are important elements, and then we need to explore all of them in the context in which we are operating, because they speak to the policymakers, they speak to the people, they speak to the communities, and then they are not related, because you said that, oh, temperature rise. Policymaker and the common public will not at all understand it. He cannot act from that, but those speak. And then those are fundamentally related to the climate. And it's not a matter of poor or rich country. And you do it for your own perspective. It is not a problem, and then that is possible, and then we did not at all explore those different elements, and then you cannot deal with those issues by only dealing with statistics, indicators. And then I think that our intellectual institutions should bring those different elements to explore how they can help us to get in concrete action. And this is why I think with a number of colleagues, number of friends, we're exploring to look at how you better address this perspective. Let us start at the stage of the development or the stage of where you are that can be applied to any given country. We start with priorities that aim to meet national objectives and poverty eradication, but we can apply that in the context of UK. We can apply in the context of the US. And then to focus on strategy that transform threats into opportunities. Because the problem is that in the climate also discussed, there is one of the misleading message. And then because the science was not clear, we sell threat. And then no one in life will buy threat, desperation. They buy hope. Because we had problem, and then let us transform the problem, give us opportunity. And then what are the opportunities? We are not selling the opportunity, we are selling threat. You will never see in the climate discourse people saying that, oh, this is the aspiration we have to take, but they say that, oh, we will have massive flooding, we have massive drought, we have massive, what else? And then from that, let us explore the initiatives that are compatible with climate. And then we explore all the options, all the opportunities based on the context, on the different. This is not what we are doing. This is not an INDC. Bullshit. This is reality. And then these people will buy it. All the policymakers, all the people will buy it. What different opportunity offer on us to explore those different opportunities. And then this is what I call the development first approach. And then the people priority or the country priority first approach. And then an approach that stimulates concrete action, mainstreaming, and a strong, inclusive, accelerated transition towards sustainable development that can apply in any given context. Depending on the, it is not only a problem of poor, it appears that I just take that example. And then we know also that in that context there is a number of barriers. Some of the barriers are policy, they are regulatory, they are institutional, they are financial, they are technical, they are informational barriers. And then in each of the contexts, we have to find out what are the different barriers that exist in a specific, given the specific condition, the situations. There is a number of barriers, we explore those different barriers, and then how we can, if we explore them, we can overcome those different barriers. And then as you rightly said it to me last night, explore first your problem. And then you can find the way out. And then those are different to overcome those different barriers. And from that, as I said it, we had different tracks at global level. We only work on silos. Because if we are dealing with sustainability, we have to break the silos. And we have 3 main clusters, and then those clusters need to work in tandem, need to have a conversation at different levels, continuous, perpetually. The first cluster is policy community. And then they are made of elected officials, ministries, community representatives, researchers, and others. And then to look at what are their main focus, what are their agenda. And then a second cluster is the research community. This is universities, research institutes, consultants, and others. And then broadly, those are broadly, the third community is the practice community. And there's the businesses, community, and civil society organization, and others. And then how, because all that has been outlined, all of them can play a critical role at a critical moment And then we need to have a conversation. And then we need to think of new type of institutional mechanism so that will, because in the climate, that conversation never appeared. They said that in Paris, there were a lot of civil society organizations. We know that that was the government. They are making the decision. It's not the civil society organization. It's not the scientific organization, because the science tells them exactly what needs to be done. And so we need to get a broader national participation to enhance cooperation. That can be done from the local to the national, the regional, and the international level to solve it. And then how to move forward. And I think that how the critical question is, how do we stimulate the political will and vision to align it? We had a political mobilization because Paris gathered more than, or almost 200 head of the states. They cannot move if there is nothing else, because there is some awareness there, but this is a precondition, is not a sufficient condition. And then have they been able to articulate the kind of vision they want, they view? And then this is important. And then the second element is how we reorient our different institutions, because our institution, it is not to deal with the complex issues we are facing. We are working in an institution that has been set up in the 50s to solve the problem of the 21st century. The silos thinking. I was discussing once at the UN, and unfortunately there were the high-level decision makers at the UN. And it was an open debate, and then naively I said that there's a lot of UN institutions I do not see the relevance at all. I said that UNDP, it has been created 50 years ago to deal with development issues. There's something wrong if it still exists. It achieved its objective. There's no role for him because the objective has been achieved. It has not achieved its objective. There is no role, there is no way it should exist, because that means it's inefficient. It happened in the audience. One of the former head of UNDP was there, gasped. He said, great, this is exactly what I'm thinking. And I think that, and then those type of new institutions only can deliver if we bring the three communities together and then to work in synergy, in tandem, and then to look at the different perspectives. And then we need more institutional innovation than anything else. Because you cannot solve, clearly, how can you solve the climate problem with the climate negotiations? Not dealing with the three other elements, as I said, finance, science, and development aspect. You cannot, in a silo, solving the problem. We need new type of institutional innovation. And then there is no free lunch. We need resources to support the required transformations. Resources does not necessarily mean only financial resources. Human resources and different type of thing, that is important. And then my last point, and then I will shut up, is the much more complex and complicated and difficult element. And we all are trapped in immediacy. And then the problem with climate and the problem with sustainable development is not immediacy, it's a long term. And then how, dealing with the short term issue, you invest in the long term imperatives, how you unite them. I have no solution. Maybe you at the university, you did explore those different elements. And unless we address those fundamental elements, forget about the success of Paris. And thank you for your attention. Sorry to be too long.
Thank you very much, Youba. You can see what I meant when I was alluding to his level of forcefulness and authority. Let me see. Well, let's start by gathering questions in at least two, and let's see how we do with time. Okay, who wants to go first? Katrina.
So thank you very much for that. I was quite struck with some of the things that you said earlier on in your talk and also over dinner last night about how unresponsive the Paris Agreement is to the science, right, particularly with respect to 1.5. So I wonder if you could just repeat some of the conversation, if you're willing to, that we had last night about your concerns about that. You mentioned it right at the beginning, but you didn't then go on to discuss that in any depth. So to me, that's another big issue with the Paris Agreement.
I think that if the way you have to deal with climate issues is to bring, as I said it, the three different communities and then to have conversation with them. And if you look at the IPCC report, it's not only the IPCC report, it's many of the scientific documents that come up since the AR4, and then you will find that the 2 degrees issues is very well documented. 1.5 degrees that are all documented. And IPCC is not doing research, it's compiling assessing the existing literature. And then for the different scenarios, and then to give indication on how to achieve, or the achievability of the 2 degrees was based on what literature said. And IPCC collected all the literature, and then there were, from the modeling community, we gathered 1,200 scenarios. Out of the 1,200 scenarios, 300 was on business as usual scenarios. And 900 was on stabilization, some were compatible with 2 degrees. Only one addressed 1.5 degree. You cannot provide that an assessment based on one modeling, and this is the problem. And then for me, if there were a conversation, if you want to solve the problem, they said 1.5 degree, what science tells us about the 1.5 degree? You cannot put it in a core. At least this is my naive approach of the problem. But unless you want to please people, to put a figure saying this, so knowing that, and then if you carefully read the 2 degrees achievability, and then you look at the reality of the economy as it's working, you raise a number of questions of the achievability of the 2 degrees. Because the problem is that we do not have the compromise the future of our kids and grandkids by giving to them the impression that the problem can be solved while it cannot be solved. I give to you the different trends we have seen. We are not in a good trend. And then that will happen only with a conversation of those 3 communities. And then some will say, science will say, oh, this is the question we have. The practice will say, oh, this is what we are doing, and then this is possible. Unless you have those kind of conversation, you are not addressing the real problem.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Great. Sam.
So on that subject, can I provoke you a little bit more on actually what happened in Paris to insert this paragraph which invites the IPCC to write a report on 1.5 degrees on the basis of one article? How is that inserted, number one, and what are the expectations from the IPCC Secretariat in how that knowledge gap will be filled?
I think that in order to, because Paris was about to have an agreement not to solve the climate problem. This is my personal reading of the Paris. And you will find in the Paris Agreement anything that interests any country. And then the poor country said 1.5 degree, they need it. And then in order to bring those the big guy perspective, and then they bring 1.5 degree. And then the way out for them, I hear many said that IPCC recommend 2 degrees. IPCC never recommend any level of. And then that happened frequently you know, one of the first client of IPCC is UNFCCC, because the panel is the countries, and then UNFCCC the countries. If there is a question, they say that addressed to IPCC does not mean IPCC will do it. IPCC can act because IPCC, since the election of the new leadership, have not at all had any meeting. The first meeting will be in February of the Bureau. And then to look at, because we do have more than 30 proposals for special report. And there is preconditions for IPCC, and then this is also on the website of IPCC. The regulation of the IPCC is there. In order to have a special report, you need to have an interest of more than one working group. This is not important. This is one element. But the most important element is the existence of literature. If there is no literature, how you can assess? So this is clear, and then we are working on examining all the proposal for special report, including 1.5, and then we examine, and then we ask the scientists what the state of the literature on those different topics. If there is no literature, we tell we cannot assess. That's all.
Well, you haven't quite answered the question of what they were saying, but I'll wait and see with bated breath.
Okay. Tara.
Thank you, Youba, and thank you for bringing the development first conversation here. I agree with you completely. I think, you know, the SDGs started this month. Countries, if they have any sense, are already thinking about how they put them into action. I think we have a real struggle with the developed countries who still have not realised that the SDGs are for them as well. And I think it offers a fantastic platform to talk about climate in a different way. I am actually encouraged that the two things, at least on the pieces of paper, recognise each other and cross-reference each other, because in the past they didn't always do that. I think now it's up to everybody in the implementation to make sure that they're acted out in the way that you propose. So I guess there's two things. One thing is, I guess, a plea from a pragmatist, I guess, again, that the 1 point, I know I've had conversations with Irish colleagues in the IPCC who have said the same things as you. We don't have a literature to go on for this. We don't have the science to put on. But I do think you could use it as an opportunity to make some of these points. So to look at how, even if looking at the most ambitious pathways, how we achieve those, because those are the ones that keep the door open to 1.5, how we achieve those in ways that allow development to happen in a sustainable way. And I think there's opportunities there to be creative with it, but also to identify gaps and point towards the additional research that we need to have. Because what all of this means is it should be possible to make arguments for more rapid action and the right kind of action in different countries. So along the development first line. So that's one thing. And then another thing I'd like to think about some more, and this is one I've been discussing with several people in the room, but I think you're quite right that one of the challenges in moving forward is how to balance the short-term things that need to be done, particularly around poverty eradication, health, and here and now human well-being, with the longer-term imperative to leave this planet in a good state for future generations. And I'm thinking about how we look at opportunities within the SDGs and the role of the high-level political forum as to how you might actually start to create spaces for those kind of conversations around how we could measure and evaluate, if you like, the actions that countries are taking to get that balance.
I think that on the first element, it gives more perspective for the academia, and then to explore some of the elements, particularly it gives to those who are doing their PhD, their master's degree, or writing the papers, and then to look at the implication of 1.5 degree and the 2 degrees. And then what are the implications? And this one element. And then the second element, what are the conditions to achieve them? And the conditions to achieve them are simple, because we are not on track on the 2 degrees. And then how you can think about 1.5 degree? I'm not saying that we're not doing it, but I said that we only need to think differently in order to achieve. And then all those different discussions at international level will bring in the element of poor and rich. And then it looked like, as you rightly point out, the sustainable development is only for the poor country, not for the rich country.
Okay. So Paris Agreement was a wish list, if you like, an a la carte that combines all sorts of different things that everybody wanted to see. Here you have a minute or two to write the Paris Agreement. Tell us, apart from these bold and important statements about the need for realignment and reframing, putting development first, what would a Paris Agreement written by Youba have looked like?
And he says he's your friend.
We'll reconcile.
No, I think that for me, the agreement is a bit misleading. And then we have seen the limit of what you can expect from the UNFCCC. And then I said that we need new type of institutions and institutional mechanism, and then we need to explore that. And then I think that the scientific community, the research community, can explore what type of institution we need in order to solve those different issues, because we have seen the limit of the UNFCCC. I have been seeing the UN, I work on the issue through the Rio process, and then the first office of UNFCCC was only in this corridor with Michael Zammit and then 3-4 colleagues. Now they have more staff than UNEP. It's a secretariat for negotiation, but the secretariat has more staff than any UN technical institution. This is a problem. And we have mechanism of negotiations. We do not have any mechanism for implementation. And then for me, it will be give and receive to get away, and then to concentrate how we can adequately institutionally address the climate issues, because we are in the wrong institutional setup. And then to concentrate on that, because we have all the elements how to deal with, but the mechanism we have for negotiation, for agreement, will not help us to solve it. We had Kyoto. It was a binding agreement. We leave it. And then we said INDCs. Those are, because for me, the fundamental problems have not been addressed. The fundamental problem is that the science was clear. And then the different element that is not explored, that is what kind of mechanism do we need to put in place in order to deal with? We did not address it. And any developing country who needs support in order to, on the climate issues, where the country will get advice. Which institution will bring the advice to the countries, and all the institutions who have the competence have no legitimacy. They may go to World Resource Institute. It has the competence, but no legitimacy. And UNDP has a legitimacy, no competence on those different issues. Those are fundamental problems. We get completely blend of them, and then we focus on agreement.
Yes. So you told me once that so far, technology can go so far unless we invest in education. We're not going to make it. And you have highlighted in some of your slides how important it is, especially for these developed countries and emerging economies. What do you? The agreement is attempting to bring back into to increase the profile of these issues, not in a practical manner, not necessarily as practically as you would like to. But what do you think is, from an institutional point of view, or what do you think we should do for capacity building and education in particular? How transformative to make this area what we have to do. I love bringing those free communities that you have described. That's one type of, for me, capacity building already activity to try to get them to talk together. But apart from that, what do you think had to be done? What kind of institution could really make an impact on those areas together?
I think that after how many years, and then discover those different elements, saying that there's nothing in the agreement that we don't know, that have not been agreed, globally or sectorally. And I think that we did not at all focus on the implementation of the Climate Convention, because Article 6 of the Convention, if we started in 92, 2000, this is a generation, what the Article 6 of the Convention said: education, information, awareness. It does not cost a lot of money because it's a mindset. And then back to 30 years, there were bears smoking ashtray in all the tables here. And then if you see it today, it became something like unusual. How that came? It came through education, training, awareness, and then with some regulation. Because we accept regulations if we know, if you are informed, if you are educated. And we lost the path of educating people. We lost of informing people, because individual acts is as important at country level. Because I believe I will do it. It is not because I sign a piece of paper I will do it. Those are important, and that does not cost money. And then you go to any donor country and it's only token. If you want to have awareness raising, information, and communication, you will not get any resources. And then it's not because Sam is here that I'm saying it. The IPCC assessment report was only disseminated in industrialized countries because they're interested. There's no outreach activity in developing countries. It's CDKM who start doing it, taking the report and try to adapt in the local conditions, and then in order to inform. And this is only a drop in a sea. That needs to be done on a continuous basis. And then how much that costs? You take 1/3 or a token from Paris, and then you massively do it. I have been involved in the outreach program this year intensively, and I know how desperate countries are, different communities are, to be informed, to receive the information. And those are, unless I did not see that outlined in the Paris Agreement, because we need to change. We need a generation. It's undoing a continuous effort still not being done in Adam.
And actually, the last question, which I'm sorry will be from me, but it will be on that topic. The importance of disseminating IPCC reports to communities across the world, and especially in developing countries, is absolutely key. But now, as the vice chair of the IPCC, and now you're in the middle of trying to design the sixth assessment report, what is the thinking, or your personal thinking since the Bureau has not met, on how to also feedback or get information from the communities in writing the IPCC without the focus only on the published literature in non-regulated academic journals?
I think that here again, people are not looking at the system, how it exists. Go to the website of IPCC and clearly articulated that the assessment is not only peer-reviewed literature. Gray literature can be used, but there is no condition that is related to that. I know if you are dealing with the climate science, the physical science, you have to rely. It's not because you have a peer-reviewed literature, there's no error in the peer-reviewed literature. We all know that. But the physical science can be based on the peer-reviewed literature, but the social and then the other element have to, and then those are, and then there is some of indications, some of the possibilities to do that. It's very well articulated in there is no exclusion of the other.
Thank you very much, Youba. Let's appreciate him again.